NIMET released a seasonal climate prediction, which was interpreted by the agency. So we now call stakeholders to further interpret the whole process and then digest the whole thing to the press. That's the reason why we called.
Okay, so what are the mitigation effects or plans that you will be recommending for people to put in place?
We have identified high-risk areas, and those high-risk areas, I don't have them at hand, but 233 local government areas will be at high risk, and 32 states. So those are the areas what we have sent to all the states governments, including the FCT, identifying the high-risk areas. So we have done that accordingly.
This flooding takes place in communities and states, and you invite this SEMA
comes in. So if the state has everybody has a role to play. LEMC have roles to play, state government have role to play, and then the national.
The community.
Yes.
Even the community.
Yes, that's the LEMC. Thank you very much.
I think that has been given by NIMET and NISA.
That is what NIMET has released that for the
They've given the patterns of.
Yes. I won't have that.
And we said, okay, April, May, and June, this is what we'll expect in different parts of Nigeria, and also July, August, September, where we are now. Lastly, October and November. The general highlight of 2022 annual flood outlook, the DG NEMA has mentioned it. 32 local government, 32 states in Nigeria will be heavily impacted, totaling 233 local government areas in 32 states and the FCT will experience high flood incidents, very high. And another 212 will experience moderate flooding in 35 states and the FCT. The reported flood incidences so reported the fact that emergency and disaster preparedness and response is a dynamic sector. Flood disasters are highly susceptible to climate change and are further aggravated by human activities, like what we see in so many states. We begin to ask, where are the drainages? And I don't know why it is only when we are at the peak of it that the state governors will be, like I saw one governor inside the trench, using shovel and so on to scoop the rubbish about a week ago. And one governor relocating to one local government because so many lives have been lost. These are things that should be done during the dry season. The impact of flooding on farmlands and farming activities have posed a great threat to food security in the nation. We are all aware of the devastation to farmlands and critical infrastructure in Lagos, Borno, Adamawa, Taraba, Jigawa, Bauchi, Yobe, Bini, and other states in Nigeria. Therefore, the essence of this meeting cannot be lost. That stakeholders that are here should take hope what needs to be done. We keep saying it, and we believe strongly that one day, any forecast, any prediction will be followed by any action by relevant stakeholders, especially at the state levels. It is my belief that this workshop will provide a platform to proffer solutions to some of the challenges facing the emergency sector, particularly as it relates to flood disaster and management in Nigeria. NISA has been and will continue to champion flood disaster reduction in cities and riparian communities through provision of reliable and timely information and data on flood early warning and the required measures of response activities. Finally, while I commend NEMA for their consistency in convening this workshop, which will be of immense contribution to knowledge among stakeholders in the emergency and disaster response sector in Nigeria, I wish to again use this medium to express our appreciation to the DG amendment of NEMA for the donation of 3 automatic weather observation systems. Yes, we said this some time ago, we'll keep saying it. Many agencies work in association of orders. So NEMA assisted our agency by providing some equipment to help us do our forecast or prediction better. One of such was established at National State University. One was put at Ekiti State University. And the third one, Federal University, Kashere. I think that should be in Gombe State. The guest was well commended by the Honorable Minister of Water Resources, Engineer Suleiman Adamu. Also, the governing board of the agency, while it lasted, paid tribute to NEMA for such a kind gesture done to the agency. On a final note, we will continue to support NEMA with the provision of updates on flood events in the country to enhance their preparedness. I am optimistic that this National Consultative Workshop will go a long way to create the needed awareness, enhance planning, and promote sustainable socio-economic development through effective flood risk mitigation, adaptation, and resilience in our community. Thank you for your attention. God bless.
I represent the Honorable Minister, and I will read her address. I'm highly esteemed disaster management stakeholders and partners. I welcome you to this workshop on the 2022 Flood Preparedness, Mitigation and Response in Nigeria. This workshop is highly imperative at this point when flooding has taken a toll on some parts of the country. Flood has become a recurring experience in Nigeria. After the 2012 devastating flood, a similar one occurred in 2018, leading to a declaration of disaster emergency in many states. Though climate change has been largely blamed for this increasing phenomenon, it is our responsibility as government and people to evolve strategies to minimize losses through adherence to warning alerts, early preparation, and proper response. I am therefore delighted that the National Emergency Management Agency, under the supervision of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, has put this program together this year to further mitigate the impact of flood in Nigeria. Permit me to once again draw your attention to the yearly seasonal climate prediction released by NIMED and the annual flood outlook released by NISA for 2022. These documents have respectively forecasted weather and hydrological situations for different parts of the country. This information have provided emergency managers the opportunity to perfect their preparedness, mitigation, and response plans. This is therefore a wake-up call for all hands to be on deck in order to prepare for, mitigate against, and respond to the impending flood. I understand that some states have already started to experience flood disasters with associated impacts. Notwithstanding, I still wish to request relevant stakeholders to kindly take proactive and necessary mitigating measures in addressing these issues, which should include, among others, intensification of public enlightenment campaigns targeting vulnerable communities to undertake mitigation actions and prepare for evacuation to safe grounds. Identification of high grounds for possible internally displaced person camps to shelter evacuated communities. Desilting river channels and canals. Removal of all refuse, weeds, water hyacinths, and floats from water channels, drainages, and all avenues for river runoffs, so as to allow free flow of flood waters. Strengthening state humanitarian coordination forum meetings to prepare all stakeholders for mitigation and response. Repositioning of relief materials and medicaments to enable prompt response during and after flood. The federal government, through the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, has taken note of this year's prediction and is working with relevant stakeholders to mitigate the possible effect of such flood.